This is reading Al Jazeera. There's a live updates about Donald Trump, I guess. And it says US Supreme Court strikes down Trump's global tariffs. Written by Brian Osgood and Fiona Kelleher. Summary says, updated 1 hour ago, the US Supreme Court has struck down tariffs issued on countries worldwide last year by President Donald Trump. The court says Trump did not have the authority to enact the tariffs, which he pursued under a law meant for use in national emergencies. Trump's tariff threats and impositions have been central to a global trade war that he initiated early in his second term as president, which has strained ties with trading partners and affected global markets. Lastly, lower federal courts had previously issued decisions against the Trump administration on this issue 4 minutes ago. Swiss Industry Group welcomes US Supreme Court tariff ruling. Swiss Industry Association Swissmen has applauded the US Supreme Court's decision to strike down President Donald Trump's tariffs, but urged Switzerland to conclude a preliminary deal agreed to last year with Washington to create legal certainty. Separately, the Swiss government said that the country's governing federal council will analyze further developments and specific impacts of the Supreme Court decision. 19 minutes ago, UK expects quote-unquote privileged relationship with US to resume. We now have a reaction from the UK government. The US is the UK's largest trading partner, making up nearly 18% or roughly $435 billion of total UK trade in 2024, according to the UK Department for Business and Trade. Quote, the UK enjoys the lowest reciprocal tariffs globally, and under any scenario we expect our privileged trading position with the US to continue, end quote. A government spokesperson said in a statement, quote, we will work with the US administration to understand how the ruling will affect tariffs for the UK and the rest of the world, end quote. The spokesperson added. The British Chamber of Commerce, however, said the decision, quote unquote, does little to clear the murky waters for business, end quote. Quote, the court's decision also raises questions on how US importers can reclaim levies already paid and whether UK exporters can also receive a share of any rebate depending on commercial trading terms, end quote, the body added. 29 minutes ago. What is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977? Trump enacted his infamous tariffs under a little-known law known as the IEEPA, which grants the president, quote-unquote, broad authority to regulate a variety of economic transactions following a declaration of national emergency, end quote, according to the Library of Congress. Prior to 2025, no US president had ever used the law to impose tariffs, which is an authority granted to Congress under the US Constitution. Trump claimed that tariffs were necessary because of 6 different national emergencies ranging from fentanyl trafficking to quote-unquote persistent annual United States goods trade deficits, end quote. Various lawsuits were filed challenging Trump's use of the IEEPA. Starting in May last year, several lower courts ruled Trump's actions were not authorized under the law. Decisions that the Trump administration appealed until the issue reached the Supreme Court 29 minutes ago. US markets are surging on news of lifted tariffs by Andy Hirschfeld. US markets are trending upward as the Supreme Court rejects Trump's tariffs. The Nasdaq is up 1% in mid-trading. The Standard & Poor's 500 is up 0.6%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 0.3% of 11 a.m. in New York. Gold prices, which are considered a safe investment during economic uncertainty, are also up 1.5% following the High Court's decision. New live update available. I'm going to read 1 hour and then the previous. Congressional Democrats cheer ruling as a win for consumers. Democratic lawmakers have welcomed the court's decision, slamming Trump's expensive tariffs as an additional economic burden on everyday people. Quote, a victory for the wallets of every American consumer, Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer said in a social media post. Quote, Trump's illegal tariff tax just collapsed. He tried to govern by decree and stuck families with the bill. Enough chaos. End the trade war, end quote. End the trade war. Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries called the ruling, quote-unquote, another crushing defeat for the wannabe king, end quote. 44 minutes ago, EU says it has noted tariff ruling is seeking information on next step. A spokesperson for the European Union has said that it has noted the Supreme Court decision and is seeking clarity from the Trump administration regarding its planned response. Quote, we take note of the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court and are analyzing it carefully. We remain in close contact with the U.S. administration as we seek clarity on the steps they intend to take in response to this ruling, end quote, said the spokesperson. Businesses on both sides of the Atlantic depend on stability and predictability in the trading relationship. We therefore continue to advocate for low tariffs and to work towards reducing them, end quote, added the spokesperson. And there's a video saying EU and UK have been alarmed at Trump administration's approach to Ukraine war and threats to seize Greenland. I guess everything is mixed. Greenland, tariffs and stuff. Ruling indicates that Trump's tariffs broke the law. The Supreme Court ruling indicates that Trump overstepped his authorities broke the law by imposing sweeping tariffs on many countries around the world. Chris Edelson, a lecturer at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, tells Al Jazeera in a television interview, quote, "What it means first and foremost is that Donald Trump acted illegally. He was breaking the law. The Supreme Court said there simply is no authority under this law, an emergency law." End quote. Edelson said, quote, "Donald Trump said the emergency law allowed him to use tariffs, and the Supreme Court said, quote unquote, actually Congress didn't say that." End quote. But some details remain unclear following the decision, including whether companies that lost money due to tariffs will receive compensation for their losses. Quote, "What happens? Do they get this money back? The companies are going to want it back. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if it was addressed by the court," end quote, he said. He added, "Maybe Donald Trump will send everybody to war, to the front." 5 minutes ago, I guess, yeah. Well, by Dominic Kane, reporting from Berlin, Germany. Here in Berlin, different branches of industries have all reacted because the German economy doesn't want tariffs from the US, and it doesn't want tariffs here on US goods. The Chamber of Commerce has said, quote unquote, the Chamber of Commerce has said, quote, "Please react with a cool head to what has come from Washington, D.C., end quote." Then the car manufacturers fear the tariffs that have been imposed, which are the subject of this ruling, might reappear under a different guise. And the other thing to remember is that while the EU has tried to adopt a conciliatory mood up to a point, they have already been busy negotiating other trade deals over the course of the last few months. There's a very last one. A minute ago, Canada says ruling validates belief that tariffs were, quote-unquote, unjustified. Canadian International Trade Minister Dominique LeBlanc has said that the court decision shows that heavy tariffs imposed on Canada were unjustified, but that a series of industry-specific tariffs targeting areas such as steel, aluminium, and cars remain in place. LeBlanc pledged to continue working with U.S. authorities to, quote-unquote, create growth and opportunities on both sides of the border. And that's it. All about Donald Trump tariffs on Al Jazeera.